Chapter 31. I might be father of the century, but how is your mother? You are listening at novelfull.audio. How am I supposed to go save people underwater? I can't breathe down there, you know that, right? I asked, giving him a single raised eyebrow. I know that, but don't worry about it, nothing we can do for now. All right boys, go back in the water, this handsome young chap will help you out when he can, but he will need a day or 4, Mex told the horrifying creature. Good Lord, that was a face that even a mother would have trouble not leaving them in the first cardboard box they saw. Mex's statement didn't really seem to help the problem of his crying, but the Sahuagin did head back to the group and started shoving them all back to the water. Can we really just leave them like this? Like, are the girls safe? Barracuda are like sea wolves, right? I was concerned. This world was just a series of problems stacked on top of each other, but this seemed like the most urgent one I had found yet. Still, not like there was anything that I could do unless I started to breathe water all of a sudden. There isn't anything that either of us can do. My domain does not stretch past the shore, so I can't help them, and you can't hold your breath long enough. You just aren't ready to deal with the beasts that hide in the watery abyss. I will help you gain what you need because our interests align, Mex told me. The sunset was a beautiful glistening ball of orange fire that was being swallowed by the sea as I watched the fishmen head into the water. There was an old-looking blue demon that was wearing only shorts. It looked to be made out of the same heavy material as us, so this must be the standard for demon men on the island and maybe for the world. The man's wings were much smaller than Mex's, but he did have some. I had noticed in the keep that the guards and the few demons that had been working in the yard that had been male had no wings. Maybe it was part of rank or the next set for a demon before getting the light skin, but I was not a demonologist. Thank you Mex, it was starting to upset the women and children to have to listen to that howling all day long. You know there isn't another village for 50 miles in either direction, and they still feel the need to come here to cry. The elder complained as he walked up, and then he bowed to Mexico. Yes, I know, Dak. If I could figure out how to make them less ugly or their women less loose, I would. Anyways, this is Kaz, and he will be doing some work for me and helping out, so next time he will take care of them, Mex said as he introduced me with some hand waving in my direction. The old man looked at me and smiled. Interesting, I thought he was a slave or something at first. You never come out with these hero wannabes, so what makes you so helpful all of a sudden? Dak asked with suspicion, but he was eyeballing me. You know I never do anything without some kind of plan for results in the future. Let's just say that I have a modicum of faith in this young man, Mex said, and I sighed. You know, I don't mind that you call me a young man and boy, but you do know I am 30.2 years old, right? I asked Mex with a strained expression. Both of the demons looked at each other and then proceeded to fall over and start laughing and rolling in the sand like hyena. I crossed my arms across my chiseled chest and waited for the children to finish their fit of laughter on the ground. The two helped each other up off the ground, dusting themselves off and wiping tears from their eyes. Mex composed him, but he still had a big shit-eater's grin. Okay, so what's so funny, wise guy? I asked, trying not to sound annoyed. I would have usually hurt someone at this point, but this world was teaching me a bit about watching and waiting. If everyone listened to Mex and even the forest moved for him, I would probably take his jokes with a grain of sand if I wanted to survive. Sorry, but I think that I have earwax that's older than yours. Dak here is 380.2 years old and still a spring chicken. I think I was there when he was born. Mex said, trailing off and fingering his chin in thought. No, you were there as most of my life, but you were there when I was made, according to my mother, Dak said nonchalantly. One of my eyes almost popped out from my face as it attempted to perform some daring stunt of spiking one eyebrow while my eyes bulged. I was having trouble keeping up at this point. What was next? Was I going to have to save more children from this? Ah piss, he was a demon, so I could hardly fault him for being dastardly. Wait, you're Mex's son. I asked in disbelief, but the two studiously ignored me. How is your mother? Mex asked curiously. Not dead yet, Dak said flatly. That's unfortunate, the bad ones always seem to live the longest. Well, like I said, I will send the body to come help next time there is a problem, but we have to get back now, Mex said and started to turn back to the forest, but I stopped him. Wait, does the village have anything that they would trade like food or clothing? I want to bring back something for the girls, I said, but Mex shook his head. No need for that, there is plenty of all that in the keep. We have cooks and such to prepare it for you all. Do not worry, we will, Mex tried to say, but I stopped him again. I'm no great cook or designer, but I just need the stuff, and I will prepare everything for the girls, I told Mex, waving him forward, but he didn't move. So then, you're going to train and do this every day? Even when we get back? Are you not tired? Mex asked in confusion, but this time I got to smile. Not all of it the same, but as a fighter, I needed to eat a lot, and I wasn't pro yet, so I had to make all my meals. I had to repair my gear too or get new stuff, but that cost money, and it was just easier to patch things until they were completely worn. I got this, I said with a smile as I started to walk into the forest. Chapter 32. Overexcited, a pile of monster girls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mex left me and headed upstairs, so I headed over to the right and around the fountain. I led me to a large pair of dark wooden swinging doors behind and under the staircase. I had a hard time trying to rationalize how the place stayed so clean, there wasn't a single spot of dust anywhere, but I also hadn't seen people clean. That didn't really mean anything since the cleaners could have come while I was gone, but I wondered where that was all hiding then. I shook the thought from my head and pushed open the kitchen door to find a large area with a sizable 2 by 0.4 meter island set up in the middle. I could see the stoves and ovens on the side and a large area to wash dishes. You must be Mex's new guest, but what are you doing in the kitchen? If you are hungry, can I make you some food? An average-looking female demon in an apron asked me. This must be Liddy, Spell's wife. She was slightly shorter than me, but she wasn't what I would call overly pretty, but she had a kind smile. She was also very pregnant, and she looked like she should be sitting down and resting. No, it's okay. I came to make some food for the girls and me. It's not that I don't think that you would do a great job, but I have a skill that makes the food more satisfying if I prepare it myself, I explained to her, and Liddy got a big grin on her face. Alright then, can I still help you? Liddy asked curiously, and I nodded. Yes, I would appreciate that. I don't know the kinds of things that each girl should be eating, or if there is anything special I should be making them, I explained to Liddy, and she smiled and nodded excitedly. Oh, I can definitely help you out with that. It is nice to see a man taking care of his girls. Yes, come over here, and I will show you what each will want, Liddy said while waving me over to join her. It took me about an hour, and I was almost ready to fall asleep on my feet by this point. Liddy had been a great help with preparing things for me, so all I had to do was cook the meat, which seemed to be all that the girls ate. I had also boiled some eggs and potatoes in another pot. I needed more than just meat after this day. I had been so tired and lazy that I just hard-boiled the eggs with the potatoes to save time and heating up another pot of water. Once everything was finished, I piled a tray full of cooked meats and plopped my bowl of spuds and eggs on top. I waved to and thanked Liddy for all her help as I left the kitchen and made my way up to Nushi's bedroom. I knocked on the door once I got up to the room, and there was some banging around, and then I heard scrambling at the door. What the hell were they doing in there? The door flew open, and I narrowly dodged all three of the girls that came barreling out of the room and then almost went over the railing. Mary actually did go flying over the edge, but I didn't have time to worry when a massive gust of wind pushed all of Mary and us back from the railing. I was forced to fall solidly on my ass, but it was controlled. So, the meat and my bowl stayed in place, but where the hell did that wind just come from? I looked over at the girls that were now groaning. They were trying to pull themselves out of the mess that they had become as I watched them. "What is up with you guys? Are you all that hungry?" I asked as I slowly managed to get myself off the ground. The girls didn't say anything until they got themselves untangled. As tired as I was, I didn't mind waiting, but the food started to make my stomach growl. Then I noticed that they all were wearing clothes now, or some things that covered them. The Cerberus girls grabbed Mary's hand and brought her over to me, and once Mary was within arm's reach, she perked up. Mary came directly to me and then around behind me, and I felt her body curl around mine, but this time she was almost weightless to me. At the same time, Sarah, Bera, and Reese ducked under the platter I was carrying and started to hug me, but it was awkward. I held the plate at about waist height, so the girls had their faces buried in my crotch, breathing hot and heavy and rubbing their faces into me. "We thoughts that you died. Now you're backs. And you brought meats. Butts, you are rest different. Stronger, but smaller, but I like us," Mary said as she licked my neck up to my ear. The feeling sent a cold shiver running down my back that radiated out as heat through my body. This feeling was excellent, but like the kind that makes you want to return the favor, and that made the other situation with the girls worse. I felt myself start growing at an alarming speed, and I was at a loss for what to do. I was only wearing shorts and my boxers, and I could feel them rubbing their faces on my now throbbing shaft. "Are you going to come into the room with that food or wait until those pups help you rub it off with their faces? I will just let you use a real hole if you want later," Jilly said suggestively as she came over and grabbed a piece of meat. Immediately the girls ceased their action and did a cute backward double roll, and my raging erection took a chill pill. The girls looked very cute and embarrassed in the yellow dress she was wearing with a white section in the center ran over her center breast and then fanned out. "Yes, let's eat, and then go to bed, I am tired," I said as I followed Jilly and the blushing girls into Nushi's room. Chapter 33. Reverse Psychology, Reversed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As I walked into the room, I noticed that Nushi was sitting on the bed, and her horns had barely even grown, and I frowned. I remember how adamant she had been about her horns growing back fast, so I was a bit confused. They had already cleared the books off one of the 3 tables Nushi had around her room, so I was able to finally set the plate of different kinds of meat. I had to get some pointers on cooking some of the giant bug parts for Jilly. I was hesitant about even cooking the giant ants, but Liddy had told me that I would get special points with Jilly if I cooked these for her. Mary was easy, and I only had to fry up some rabbit meat, and Liddy told me I could have just fed it to her raw, but I wanted to see if she and the snakes liked it better cooked. Sarah, Bera, and Reese just got big thick steaks, but I had cooked them just past blue, and they were still full of blood and juices. I had also asked Liddy what Nushi ate, and she had said to just cook one of the steaks longer and cut it up for her. After I was done placing the platter down, the Cerberus girls and Jilly started to dig in and made delighted moans as they ate. I called Nushi over, and she ignored me at first and buried her face in a book she had only just started to read. "I cut you up some steak into small pieces and cooked it longer. I have it set off to the side on the platter for when you want to come and join us," I said as I took a seat in one of the chairs that were around the table. Nushi continued to ignore me, so I turned my attention to the beauty that was moving around me to settle comfortably in my lap and lean back against me. I was warmly reminded of the alone time that we had spent together in the canyon as I scooped the rabbit meat into my bowl of tubers. I held the bowl with one hand in front of me for Mary to pick from, and with my other hand, I started to grab the smaller pieces of meat and feed them to Mary's snakes. They each eagerly waited for turns as I fed the patiently waiting snakes. The Cerberus girls would hold a piece of meat up to their 3 heads, and then they would take turns taking bites. I was curious about how they decided how to move, but that would be something that I went over with them before we left. Jilly grabbed the softball-sized sections of giant ant abdomen and popping was them into her mouth like theory were candy. I had to stop watching her eat when Jilly started to bite the legs off one at a time. During the time I was watching the other girls and feeding the snakes, Nushi had been moving across to the edge of her bed. I could tell that she wanted to come and eat with the rest of the girls, but her stubbornness prevented her from it. You know, I don't think that you would like this meat, I said nonchalantly, making Nushi pull her nose out of the book and glared at me. Oh. And why not? How do you know what I like and don't? Maybe I would like it. Nushi said defiantly as she fell neatly into my trap. No, you're right, this steak that was cooked well done and cut up into pieces probably isn't something that you would like. Jilly, are you still hungry? Maybe you could eat these. I said. I was trying to be serious, but I was having a hard time. Before Jilly could pipe up, Mary turned around and started to hammer her fist on my chest. But I wanted the meats. You're so possessive to give us them to me. Mary hissed at me with a menacing cuteness that could have melted a glacier's heart. During this, Nushi had snuck over to the table and was trying to scarf down the meat. Unfortunately, her natural ladylike manner seemed to be preventing her from stuffing her face. Once Nushi was relieved that everyone was looking at her, she froze and looked like she was about to bolt. I hadn't expected Mary to react like this, so I cleared my throat. I am sorry, Mary, I wasn't actually going to let Jilly eat Nushi's meat. This was just a trick. I had started to say, but stopped after Mary reached back into the bowl of meat and potatoes. Mary had been staring at me intently, but I guessed that her hunger was outweighing the need to be upset with me, and she popped a small potato into her mouth. I watched as Mary bit down on the spud, and then Mary looked like she was about to cry as she started to wave her hands in the air with her mouth wide open. It's Aki. I guess it's. Mary hissed around the crushed boiled potato that filled her mouth. As I leaned forward to reach around Mary to grab the bowl for her to spit the spud out, Mary seemed to think I was trying something else. As I leaned, Mary grabbed my face and then kissed me. The feeling of her soft and cool lips was shocking at first, but the mouth full of potatoes I got from Mary really took the romance out of it. Still, Mary didn't pull back right away, and even though I was trying to choke down the potato, I was still able to enjoy the kiss. Mary pulled back and then turned around like nothing had happened and went back to eating. This time she sniffed the food before eating it, and I was left stunned, or at least until Mary's snakes hissed at me for more food. That was fun, I was half tempted to feed another one. Chapter 34. Eggs, what witchcraft is this? You are listening at novelfull.audio. After I finished feeding Mary's snakes, I was able to start eating my boiled potatoes. They weren't much for flavor, but I could feel them fill me up. Mary was feeling around the bowl for more meat, but I had picked out the last of the meat chunks for her, and now there were only a few spuds and my boiled eggs that I had yet to crack and peel. No more meats. Mary hissed after turning to me with a disappointed look on her face. I have some hard-boiled eggs if you want to try one. I asked her, but Mary shook her head at me. That's not meats, she hissed cutely. Yes, they are, eggs might not look or feel the same as normal meat, but they still have lots of protein, I tried to explain to her, but Jilly popped up in the background to give her 2 cents. Yes, but you get shells in your mouth when you eat them whole. Also, even if you do just get the inside in your mouth, it is just eating your own nose running, Jilly said with a disgusted look on her face, and then Mary started in on me. You wanted me to eat nose boogies from those rocks. Mary hissed at me while screwing up her face. No. I cooked them. They are solid on the inside now, and I eat them every day, or I did. Doesn't matter. Just wait. I said, losing a bit of my patience, and all the girls went quiet. New unique system ability, acquired. Monster dominance. You now have the ability to exert dominance over a monster if you will is more significant than its own. Not just monster girls. That seemed a bit overpowered, but it would depend on the monster and how strong it was more than likely. Chapter 35. Uncalled for, and a tempting offer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wow, you came just at the right moment. Everyone is getting tired, and I am sure that you and your daughter don't want us sleeping in here, I said as I turned to find Mex walking over in a burgundy housecoat that had a black lining. The girls know where their rooms are, you just have to ask them. Nushi, the trim looks clean, but you know that they will just grow back the same way, Mex said with a piteous voice that made me want to punch him, and I wasn't the target of his dramatism. I trimmed them for her, and I was going to help her mold them, I said, still puzzled over the how, but I did have a couple ideas, one involved heavyweight and some string. Shape them. Did my darling daughter not tell you why her horns shrink down? It's because she has such a poor attitude, isn't that, OOF? Mex's speech was cut off as a book hit him directly in the mouth and knocked him over. Get out. All of you. Nushi screamed. I wasn't sure what the reason was for Mex to be acting, but I got up with Mary and grabbed him by the housecoat. I waved for the girls to follow as Nushi threw herself into her pillow, and then dragged Mex out with us, and left him outside the door. She must have gotten him good, or he was playing possum so I could ask him about why he was such a condescending jackass to his own daughter. I would have stopped him, but this wasn't my house. So I let Jilly go in front, and I followed her to the front on the right side from where I was facing north. We have stayed here many times before, and Mary usually lives here, but she is forever wandering off, Jilly said as she opened the big door to the tower and ducked inside. I don't gets lost. You always finds me, and brings me back. Mary hissed, trying to defend herself. I never do it on purpose, it's that stupid luck of yours, but I did get free meals out of it when I came to visit, but I am too big for the place as you can see, Jilly said as she lowered her centipede body, so she was at my height, but proportionally, she was much bigger than me. I'll see what I can do tomorrow or the next day. Before we go in the morning, I want to spend some time with each of you to figure out your capabilities and how your abilities can work apart. After that, we will head out with Nushi and go meet the 4 elementals I met today, I explained, and Jilly nodded. If you want, you can come sleep with me. Yawn. I am pretty tired, but I could stay up for a bit longer if you want to have some fun. Jilly, give a yawn and stretch but moving up close to me at the same time. Now that she was this close to me, it was not only intense how much bigger she was than me, but the fact that her breasts were each the size of my head. I really wanted to take her up on the offer, but I couldn't leave the Cerberus girls all alone on their first night, and I didn't think that Mary was going anywhere. Doviko, maybe another night Jilly, I think everyone is tired, and I am no exception. We can do it another night, I said non-committedly, but Jilly took it as a promise. Good, don't make me come find you, Jilly said, and then turned from me and went over to a set of stairs that went down a level, and then she and her long red glossy body disappeared down into it. I smiled and shook my head and then turned to the girls. Ready to go to bed? Where is your room, Mary? I asked the Cerberus girls, and then Mary. It's up, Mary hissed by my ear softly. Both she and the snake must be very tired because they didn't even hiss when she did. So, I headed to the opposite side of the room from where Jilly had gone down. There was a set of stairs leading up that I walked up with the girls walking beside me. Once we got up top, the room was mostly bare, but there was a large bed with pillows. I walked over to the bed and then turned to the Cerberus girls. Do you want to sleep in your own bed, or, poof, I was about to offer them to sleep in the bed, but they transformed back into the 3-headed brown dog. I noticed that the girl's tail was short, and it looked scared. Something must have happened to them, but it would probably be a painful memory, so best to leave it be for now. You can sleep on the bed then. Mary, are you going to sleep with us or, can I sleep on the ground? I asked Mary as the girl bounded onto the bed and made themselves comfortable. I don't want to sleep on the cold floors. Mary hissed at me. No, I mean I will sleep on the floor, and you can sleep in the bed with Sarah, Bera, and Reese, I explained to Mary, but one of us wasn't getting it. How's do I sleep in the bed if you are res on the floors? Mary asked in confusion, and I gave up because I was the one not taking the hint. I went over and kicked my very beat-up shoes off. I would be lucky if they lasted till tomorrow, even with how beaten they got today. After that, I laid down with Mary, and she loosened her coils and removed them from my waist. Then she slithered over me and curled into my chest and arms, pressing her face into my bare chest and giving it a lick. After that, she pulled back a bit and then wrapped her tail loosely around my one leg. Sarah, Bara, and Reese were already fast asleep at the end of the bed, and the sun was finally going down. This was quite the interesting first day of my new life, but I could live with it for the rest of my life if this was how I ended every day. I warped my arms gently around Mary and soon fell asleep. Chapter 36. Caught, as sneaky as I thought. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Waking up was a completely different experience, and I wasn't really sure what to do. The sun hadn't come up yet, but I could see that the dark night was breaking, and the sky was starting to lighten, but I was pinned in place. Mary had coiled herself around me and was wrapped in my arms, but the loss of circulation was the thing that awoke me. As cute and adorable as she was, I needed to get free, and I tried to start wiggling around to loosen her up. Bad idea, and Mary began to constrict me more, but then something cold and wet started to sniff and tickle my feet. My eyes bulged as the girls casually tried to kill me with kindness, and started writhe trying to get free, finally waking a grumping-sounding Mary. Be still, or I bite you. I am still tired. Mary hissed at me, but I grabbed her face and turned her head towards mine to get her to look at me, but then I remember that she was blind. Mary. You're crushing my legs. I wheezed out, and the pressure stopped, but then my legs filled with pins and needles. Sorry, but I am going back to sleep. So, SSSHSSS. Mary hissed at me as she coiled up on the bed. I swung my legs over the edge of the bed, but I had to wait for the feeling to come back into my legs before I could get up. The girls came over and lazily rested their heads in my lap, and I took turns stroking each one of the girls' dog heads. Only the eyes and the ever-present glow showed in each mouth. Besides that, there were only gems on their collars. They still seemed tired, so I decided that I would leave them be for now and head down to the kitchen to get some breakfast going. You girls stay here with Mary, and I will go make some food and bring it back from you all, okay? I asked, and all three-headed nodded in understanding. The feeling had come back to my legs and feet now, but I declined to put my shoes back on. Something told me that if I was going to get stronger, it would need metal-plated boots to get any life out of them. In the end, it would be better to caveman it and just let my feet get stronger. It seemed that hard work was the key in this world if I wanted to get stronger, but that didn't mean I could ignore my stomach. I walked down the stairs, and the lower room was empty, but Jilly was probably tired like the girls. I headed out and walked down past Nushi's room and slowed, but then kept going. I would be back once I had some food. Nushi was the first person I wanted to talk to after the way her father had acted last night, but something was off with the way Mex acted. I walked down the grass carpet stairs and reveled in the weight it felt under my feet as I did, but also pondered Mex's worlds. The horns on Nushi's head were connected to her emotions, so that just meant that I would have to find some way to crack her tough shell. Maybe a little bit of alone time would be good for me to get to know her better, but there was also the question of if she could become one of my charges. That seemed to be what Mex was getting at before we came back, but I didn't know if the system would register a demon as a monster. With the new skill that I just got, it made me question it. Good, that answered my question, and now I was at the kitchen door, but I was surprised to find that Mex was in there talking with Liddy and Spell. The friendly guard looked different now, and he was only wearing shorts, and Mex had on the same. Kaz, good to see you, Mex said, but he didn't sound like his usual cheerful self. Good morning. What happened last night? After your daughter's room? I asked, deciding not to beat around the bush. Oh. Is that where I went? Imperial Great Demons. I probably need to apologize to her now. Mex said, clutching his head. What was up with you last night? I asked as I walked into the kitchen. Let's go for a walk, and I will show you the area behind the keep. Spell and Liddy will get the food ready, and you can cook when you come back. I am sure that the girls will be asleep for a bit yet, Mek said, waving me to a door at the south end of the kitchen. I followed him, not really sure what else to do, but I could understand why he might not want to talk about it around the others. Mex opened the back door and led me out into a wide open area that only had 3 large trees in the space, spread out. There was a large bare patch in the center that was about 10 meters in diameter. The rest of the grounds were covered in beautiful light green grass that looked freshly cut. About yesterday, Mex said as he turned around to face me. I had been drinking after Nishi allowed Klesh to tell me about her little lip reading talent and that Nishi knows about my plans with you. The sun was starting to burn the night from the sky as it slowly rose, on the very cusp of breaking up. And that's all that she was allowed to tell you. No threats to stop or that she was going to do something horrible. I asked in confusion as the sun slowly broke the castle wall. No, that was it, and that alone stressed me out more than any threat could have ever. The unknown is the only thing that I truly despise, and the lack of control I have over it, Mek said, clenching his fist. Chapter 37. Carnal Cooking, Giving Her What She Likes. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. I watched Mex. He was looking pained as the golden sunlight painted his light blue sink on his shoulder and the back of his neck. The rest of him was cast into shadow, increasing the weight of his pained look. Then we move forward as nothing happened. Don't let Nishi get to you, or she wins whatever game that she is playing. I will take your daughter with me, and I will take care of her like you asked me, I told him. There was no stopping me now, I had already put my mind to help her and the other girls. 1,000 or so years old crotchety granny demon be damned. That is good to hear, at least one of us seems to be able to deal with the pressure. You don't know how much I envy you and your blockage of the fear that we produce. I have also noticed that I don't feel the same when I am close to you like now. You are a strange creature, Kes Foreman. Human, you said. The past heroes have all been other monsters from other worlds, but I suppose that you are a monster in your own way, Mex explained, and I just shrugged. I had put my hand up while Mex was talking to block the sun, but now I was wasting time. I wanted to start working with the girls before it got too hot so we could enjoy the time. I need to get back and get the food on and then get the girls fed. I will go talk to Nushi and take her food. You might want to leave her be for a bit. She got you pretty good in the kisser with one of her books. I told Mex, and he rubbed his jaw. I was wondering why I woke up outside her room with a sore jaw. Yes, get going, I shouldn't have kept you for so long, but talking to you made me feel a bit better about things. I will chat with you when you return, Mex said, but then disappeared. I really detested that ability, it was like he had never even been there in the first place. I shook my head and turned to jog back to the kitchen door, and went back inside. Spell was gone now, and only the very pregnant Liddy was bringing some eggs over in a large pail. I rushed over and took it from her, and she smiled at me. You don't need to be doing this. How many months pregnant are you? You should be resting, shouldn't you? I asked, not really sure how it worked. She wasn't an animal. I had helped on farms, so I was no stranger to calving season and all the fun things that came with it. Waking up in the middle of the night in the farmhand shack to go check the animal. Then all the way to castrating the male calves for the feedlots. Months. I am 7 days, and I will have my boy tonight. Demons are only pregnant for 7 days, but then we can't have another child, well, the females can't. Males can continue to reproduce, but the females can only have 1 child, but this goes the same for other races that demons impregnate, but most of them aren't compatible. This prevents the demons from spreading too fast, I think, Liddy explained as I started to put trays of meat in the oven. Yesterday I hadn't used any spices, so today, I added salt to everything to see if they might be like that. After getting the meat in the oven, I went over to the counter, grabbing the eggs and a thick metal sheet, and went to the stove. I had no idea how the stove worked, but it produced a fire, and I was able to put the tray on top. I grabbed some butter and spread it all over before I started to crack the eggs. You do a lot with the eggs. I have never seen them cooked alone before. I use them for baking and for breading meat if I fry it, but what are you doing with the eggs? The smell is delicious. Liddy said with delight. I had already eaten 9 fried eggs, so I grabbed a plate and scooped up 2 eggs with a metal spatula. I had learned my lesson last time about wanting my own food. Here, try them out. Each day I will make eggs differently. They are one of my favorite foods because they have protein that is good for your muscles, and they are tasty. I said with a big smile as I offered Liddy the plate. She took it and thanked me graciously, and then Liddy went over to a seat to eat, and I had to stop her. She was trying to imitate the way that I had eaten by picking the egg up and letting it slide into her mouth, but she was about to bite into the yolk with it half out. Wait, put it all the way past the orange part, of it will spill all over your face, I explained, but then had to turn back to the eggs I was cooking so as not to burn them. I refused to look over as Liddy started to make erotic noise as she ate the 2 eggs. The sounds were more than a little bit arousing and distracting. I was starting to lose focus on the task at hand. I was trying to concentrate on the food I was cooking so intently that I didn't notice her stop and then sneak over to me. It wasn't until I felt her stomach push me from behind and then up against the stove and then the soft press of her ample chest. Give me more. And I'll do anything for you. Liddy said as she started to grope me, and her hot breath on my neck made fire run through me. BDNV, I spun out of the woman's grasp, and she turned on me. Liddy was looking far more attractive than she had before, but there was the fact that she was pregnant with Spell's child. Liddy, did I leave my helmet in here? Oh, hey, Kaz. Cooking up a storm, I see. Oh no, Liddy, you gave her something that she liked, didn't you? Well, I have other places to be, so, bye. Spell said as he turned to bolt from the kitchen. Don't want to pay per chapter. Join my to read 20+ chapters ahead of what is posted and get stickers. Join my patreon.com/magic_. Chapter 38. Pushed Deep, and a Girl's Fears, XXX, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey. Where are you going? Your wife is trying to sexually assault me. I yell at Spell as he tried to run away. Better you than me again. Liddy is not my wife. You fed her. Spell said, about to run again. What? You got her pregnant. Didn't you? I said as I waved a frying pan in the vapid Liddy, who looked like she was about to eat me. What? No. Well, yes, but she forced me. I like men. Spell said and then ran away. What the hell was going on here? You cook me some eggs, and I will drain yours. You still have to finish cooking the meat, so you have time, Liddy said as she went down on her knees in front of the stove where I had been cooking eggs. I put the frying pan down and looked at the eager and very pregnant Demoness. What was I resisting again? I was throbbing in my pants, and the shorts that I was wearing were not hiding it at all. I walked back over to the stove and re-greased the pan, and got ready to cook some more eggs. As I did, Liddy pulled my shorts down and let my rigid shaft protrude into her face. Liddy immediately took me into her, and I almost crushed an egg I was trying to crack in my hand. Liddy, at first, only used her mouth to pleasure me, but that alone was a fantastic feeling as I felt her tongue sliding all over my rock-hard rod. Then it was time to flip the eggs, and as I did, Liddy pulled out her breasts and hugged the around the shaft she was sucking. My eyes tried to cross, and my concentration started to slip from the eggs. Her breasts had just upped the game. Now, I pushed Liddy back, and I looked down to see that she had hiked up her dress and was now fingering herself roughly as she moaned. Seeing this was enough to put me over the edge, and the beast inside took over. I pulled the metal plate off the fire to keep the eggs from burning and then grabbed Liddy's head. I slammed Rod into her face, but her breasts prevented me from making her choke, so I slammed my hips and shaft into her. I let go of her head and pushed it back, so she was tight to the stove, and then I gripped the counter. I rammed my cock between her breasts and into her mouth, face fucking her into the stove. Liddy let her tits drop as I could feel the pressure start to build up inside of me, and she forced my meat stick into her throat. The pleasure was too much, and my knees started to get weak. I forced myself as deep as my shaft would go and exploded my hot cum into the back of her throat. Liddy grabbed my hips and pulled me, pushing me deep until all of my shaft had disappeared in her mouth, making me groan loudly. After, Liddy sucked me off for a bit more to clean every last drop of me up and then looked up to me with a large and satisfied smile. The eggs smell good," Liddy said as she got herself up, tucking her large blue breasts back inside her apron, and then came and gave me a passionate kiss before taking the entire metal tray of eggs that had been cooking. "I have other holes for you to try next time you make me something I like." Then, Liddy took the tray of eggs and left me in the kitchen alone as I pulled my shorts back up. Yeah, wow, that was, the food. I quickly went and grabbed a towel and pulled the tray of meat out. The meat all still looked good, and nothing looked burnt, so I started to pile the meat on the plate. I headed out of the room with my massive platter of meat and made my way up to Nushi's room, feeling relaxed. That was pretty hot to get to fuck that pregnant demoness mouth as I cooked eggs, and there could be more fun in the future. When I got up to Nushi's room, I knocked on the door, and at first, there were no sounds. Then I heard some movement come to the door, and a scowling and tired-looking Nushi opened the door. "What do you want, Pinky?" Nushi asked me while rubbing her eyes. "I brought you some breakfast, and I want to see how you were doing after the way your father treated you last night," I said to her as she opened the door for me to come in and then closed it after I entered. I walked over to the table and set the large plate of meat and eggs down. I sat down, pulled out my loose leaf dagger, and cut up one of the chunks of meat cooked more than the others. While I did this, Nushi went over to the bed and brushed her long light blue hair. I had given up on thinking anything was strange and hardly noticed the color. "Here," I said and turned the platter towards Nushi and pushed it towards her, but she didn't move off the bed. "What do you want?" Nushi asked me as she stared hot daggers at me. "To feed you and help with your horns. That's why I am here now," I said, not really sure what to say. "Why? Why me? Did my father say that you are going to be my husband so I can have my baby and then be eaten?" Nushi shouted at me, but I stood up and walked over to her. Nushi's eyes were starting to get glassy as I walked over to her and took her gently by the shoulders. I looked down into her blue eyes and smiled down at her. "Your father did not ask me to marry you, he only asked that I take care of you and watch over you, and I plan on doing that. Nishi will not eat you because you will not be getting pregnant while you are anywhere near her, and that will be your own choice. For, I will take care of you and protect you," I said to Nushi as her eyes filled with tears. Monster Girl Nushi is now in your care. Level up, level 4 gained. Chapter 39 Nushi, feed me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kes Foreman, level 4. Title: Monster Nanny rank. Poor Rancher, Monster Girls. 4 System. Ranching System abilities. Monster Girl Rancher. Gain experience from taking care of your monster girls. Monster Girl Pacification. The innate ability to calm monster girls. Monster Girl Care. All things done to care for monster girls are 100% more effective. Monster Girl Food Prep. All food you prepare for monster girls is 50% more satisfying. Chef's Hand. Physical body-to-body contact with monster girls increases how full and satisfied they are by 25%. Monster Girl Essence. Gain 5% of all experience gained by monster girls in your care. Unique system abilities. Monster Dominance. You now have the ability to exert dominance over a monster if your will is more significant than its own. Nushi, Level 1 Title. Not applicable species. Demon, Class 3F Unique ability. Lightning Magic * requires positive emotional state. System. Author System abilities. Summon the story. Summon a book called The Story. The story allows the user of the author system to read 5 seconds into the future of what is currently happening. The user of the author system gains experience from making successful changes in the book. The level of success is determined by the user's intentions of the change. Editorial deflection. Change the trajectory of a moving object. This change will not work if the change is greater than 5 degrees off the target's intended course. Authorized change of scenery. Change the natural landscape. This change will not work if the alteration is more significant than 5%. Somehow, I didn't think that this was going to be a good thing, but the skills made minimal changes. Still, Nushi would be able to see 5 seconds into the future, which could be exceptionally useful. What did you just do to me? What is this screen? What are you? Nushi asked, and I let go of her shoulders and offered her my hand. I have confirmed that I will take care of you like the other 3 girls, and because of that, you have received a system. You should be able to summon the book, but I am not really sure how. After I feed the girls and spend some time with them, I will come and see you before we leave for training, okay? I said, but Nushi grabbed my hand with both of hers. Wait. I haven't eaten yet. You can't leave until I'm done. Nushi shouted at me, and I stayed calm. Sure, come and sit down with me, I have it all cut up for you, I told her, and Nushi got up and followed me over to the table. I pulled a chair out for Nushi, but she didn't sit down, so I decided to sit and wait for her. To my surprise, Nushi sat on my lap and then back to glare at me. Feed me, Nushi ordered me. I held my face straight, and grabbed the platter, and pulled it back, turning it. From there, I fed Nushi one piece at a time. I had to pay attention, or I ended up getting my hand slapped when I brought the next piece too fast and growled when I was slow. Slowly, Nushi leaned back and then leaned her head into the side of mine. BDNVLDM I tried to keep my racing heart from noticeably pounding in my chest, but there was no way that she couldn't feel it. Still, she didn't complain about it, just the speed of my feeding. Slowly I felt something happening on the side of my face, there was movement, but I couldn't move to look, but I knew what it was. Nushi's horn was crawling up the side of my face, and now I had to pretend that it wasn't extremely uncomfortable. Luckily, I ran out of cut meat before I lost an eye. Once I had no more food for her, Nushi realized what she was doing and jumped from my lap. Thank you. Nushi stuttered and then screamed at me. She ran over and dove on top of her bed and grabbed her blanket. Then, as she bounced up, she impressively did a barrel roll in the air, wrapped herself in a cocoon of blankets. Can you leave, please, she muttered as she slipped from the fabric of her cocoon into the comfort of her cocoon. I was finally able to let my smile crack my face in half, and I stood and grabbed the platter. Then, I turned and walked to the door and did a balancing act to open it, but I made it without dropping the platter. After leaving the room, I gave myself a minute to gather my thoughts. That went perfectly and far better than I had expected, and seeing that Nushi's horns were starting to change was all the confirmation that I was doing something right. I started over to my door and was about to knock on the door, but decided to knock fast and then step to the side. I heard the telltale scramble, but then I heard Jilly yelling at the other 2 to calm down, and that made me smile. Whether they were excited to see me or just hungry, I didn't care, I loved how happy and excited the girls got. I really hoped that I could get Nushi to that point, but she might not ever be like the others, but it wouldn't hurt to take some of the bite out of her. The door swung open, and Jilly poked her head out, turning to me with a knowing smile. You do learn. And you brought more meat with you this time, Jilly said, but Mary and the girls were already squeezing past her. Jilly sighed and then pulled herself back into the room. That was something that I would need to work on after this with my carpenter. PD. Mary came and wrapped herself around me as the Cerberus girls came to my side in human form, looking up expectantly. Life was good. Chapter 40. Jilly, why do you do it? You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. I walked into the room and went over to a table, setting the platter on the table. I sat down with Mary, and the Cerberus girls grabbed a chair and pulled it over to get closer to me. What have you brought us this time? Jilly asked as she came over to the table, but she looked uncomfortable. Do you want to wait until I get the snakes fed, and then I will take you outside to eat with me while the girls eat? I asked her. Really? I mean, I don't really mind, it's not like you asked me to the bedroom or anything, ahaha. Jilly said with a funny laugh that was really hard to read, but kind of forced, but not. Sure, have a fried egg, for now, they are cooled down now, I said, passing her the egg, and then I turned back to the plate of meat steaks I had got. As soon as I started to cut up the meat, Jilly hit the floor and started to roll around again in pleasure. What is up with eggs? Are they like a monster girl aphrodisiac, or did I just meet all the exceptional cases? I sighed as the loose leaf dagger finished cutting some steak in small pieces, but then it also cut up some other ones. It cut them up into cubes, and then it even stacked them all the while I held the thing. I needed to give this thing a raise. Then one of the blades pointed at me and then at the meat, and then two pointed at the Mary and the Cerberus girls, who had all stopped eating to watch me. Oh, I see what was going on, but I didn't mind feeding the girls some. Turned out to be a full-time job with the snake, Mary, and the three girls. I was like an automaton on an assembly line. I had to be friendly with how I fed it to them all, but I accidentally poked Bera in the eye with a chunk of steak and made her cry. Bet them that was because Mary was done eating, but now she was cleaning my hand off, finger by finger. I had to get up and wipe her face with a wet towel that Mary handed me that she grabbed out of nowhere. It made me wonder if she could see where the things were. I am sorry for that, Bera, I said as I got up. As I did, Mary slipped off me to coil on the chair. I pushed it closer to the table so she could reach the meat and the rest of the small pieces for her snakes. It's okay, I wasn't paying attention, and it was a tasty weapon. My eye feels better now, thank you. Bera said shyly. I leaned down, and kissed the tops of the girls' heads, and then scratched behind each of their ears. I turned and kissed Mary's forehead, and she made a slight moaning sound, but she was also eating a piece of meat, so who knows what it meant. I scraped the rest of the girls' food onto the table since there were no plates and then grabbed the platter. I turned to Jilly, and she had gotten herself back up now and grabbed some meat off the plate. Ready to go now that you have fed the children? Jilly asked as she went over to open the door for me and then followed me out. Would you like me to cut up your food and feed it to you? I asked, being serious. I don't mind when we get outside. Possibly. I am still trying to figure out why we are going outside to eat when there is more than enough room in my room, Jilly asked me as we went down the grass carpet stairs. PFT, because you would have tried to sexually assault me, and then we would never get anything done. I said, chuckling as Jilly opened the front door, and we headed outside. That doesn't sound that bad, does it? Jilly said innocently with a husky tone. No, it doesn't, but that is the problem, hee. I want to work with you to figure out how to help you increase your systems level while we train. Your class is going to be one of the most important classes if we are going to help other monster girls, I explained to Jilly as we turned right to the east side of the castle and went over to sit under a tree but with the sun still on us. I set the platter down and then crossed my legs, with my back to the tree. Then Jilly laid down flat on her stomach beside me, and then she rolled over into my lap. I cooked them in the oven this time with the steaks, so they should be a bit meatier, and I put salt on them, I explained to Jilly as I started to pop them into her mouth one at a time until she stopped to turn her head a bit to get a better look at me. Why do you do this for all of us? I mean, I get that it's your system, but you really seem to enjoy doing it. I just can't figure out why. We must be a handful and hard to handle, so I just don't get why you try so hard for us. Jilly asked. I enjoy cooking for you all, and you guys are my friends. You are also fun and make me laugh and are adorable at times, and like you said, it's my system. I would be stupid if I didn't learn how to use it, and that means teaching you all to learn how to use yours, so I don't end up dying because I didn't take all the proper steps, I said with a smile. I guess that is a good enough reason, plus it's not like you will run out of things to do with us, Jilly said, giving me a wink. Now feed me, Nanny, so we can figure this thing out. Author note. Sorry I have to move down to 1 chapter a day for the next week because on some studying I have to do, but new art for Nushi is on the way.